Most backyards do not need a renovation. They need a decision. The decision to stop walking past the bare patch of soil beside the fence and actually do something with it. The decision to stop ignoring the tired paving that makes the whole space feel older than it is. The decision to stop saying, "When I have more time, when I have more money, when the conditions are finally right," and just start. Here is what nobody tells you about backyard transformation. It does not happen all at once. It happens in the hour you did not plan to spend outside, with a bag of gravel and an idea you picked up somewhere. Then another hour the following weekend. Then another. And one morning you walk outside and the space looks completely different from the one you stopped seeing years ago. Not because of one dramatic renovation, but because of 14 small, deliberate, completely achievable decisions made one at a time. Today on Daily Garden Fix, 14 DIY garden ideas that transform your backyard easily. Not aspirationally. Not eventually. This weekend, with what you already have access to, for less than you think. Let's start. Welcome back to Daily Garden Fix, the channel where the backyard you want stops being the backyard you are planning and starts being the backyard you are building. Hit that like button right now because every idea in today's video was chosen for one quality above everything else: ease. Not easy as in low impact. Easy as in genuinely achievable without specialist skills, specialist tools, or a specialist budget. These are the 14 ideas that deliver the most transformation for the least friction. Stay to the end because idea number 13 uses a material most people dismiss entirely and produces a result that looks like it cost 10 times what it did. Let's go. Idea number 1. Clear the clutter before anything else. Idea number 1. And it costs nothing because it is not an addition. It is a subtraction. Before any new element goes into a backyard, everything that does not belong needs to come out. The cracked pot that has been waiting to be thrown away since last autumn. The hose coiled in a pile against the fence. The stack of plastic trays from 3 seasons of seedlings. The furniture that belongs inside a shed. The tools leaning against the wall. Clutter is the reason most backyards look smaller, darker, and more tired than they actually are. It fills the visual field with information that has no value, objects that the eye has to process and dismiss before it can register the space itself. Remove the clutter and the backyard immediately reads as larger, calmer, and more capable of becoming something. Take 1 hour. Bin what is broken. Store what belongs inside. Consolidate what stays. Then stand at the back door and look at what remains. That is the canvas. Every idea that follows works on it. Budget. 0. The transformation that happens before the first dollar is spent. Idea number 2. Define a seating zone with an outdoor rug. Idea number 2. The single fastest way to make a backyard feel like an outdoor room rather than an outdoor space. An outdoor rug placed beneath a seating arrangement, sized generously enough that all 4 furniture legs sit on it comfortably, does something that furniture alone cannot. It defines the zone. It gives the seating area a floor that is distinct from the ground around it, in the same way that a rug in an interior living room defines the conversation area within a larger room. Without a rug, outdoor furniture sits on paving or grass and reads as objects placed in a space. With a rug, the same furniture becomes a room within the garden, a destination with its own identity and its own boundary. Choose a flat weave polypropylene outdoor rug in a pattern or color that grounds the palette of the surrounding space. Warm terracotta tones for a Mediterranean scheme, deep teal, or navy for a contemporary one, natural straw tones for an organic, relaxed feel. Polypropylene is UV stable, moisture resistant, and easy to clean with a garden hose. Size up rather than down. The rug that looks too large in the store is almost always the right size in the garden. Budget: $30 to $70. The zone-defining upgrade that takes 20 seconds to lay and immediately transforms how the seating area reads. Idea number 3. Plant a statement climber on every fence. Idea number 3. The vertical garden idea that costs under $10 per fence panel, requires almost no maintenance once established, and turns the most neglected surfaces in any backyard, the boundary fences, into the most beautiful ones. A climber trained against a fence transforms a flat, static surface into a living, breathing, seasonally changing element of the garden. It adds depth, texture, color, and in many cases fragrance, to a boundary that would otherwise simply mark the edge of the space and contribute nothing to its beauty. For fast coverage, clematis in a repeat flowering variety for long seasons of bloom. Jasmine for fragrance that carries across the entire garden on warm evenings. Climbing roses for a classic, romantic effect that improves every year as the plant matures and the stems thicken. Hydrangea petiolaris for shaded fences where most climbers struggle. Fix a simple grid of galvanized wire to the fence face using vine eyes screwed into the timber at regular intervals. The wire is almost invisible once the plant establishes. What remains is the plant, trained flat against the fence in a living espalier that reads as intentional and considered from every angle. 1 climber per panel. 1 afternoon to wire and plant. A fence that looks designed by next summer and extraordinary by the summer after. Budget, $8 to $20 per climber. The vertical upgrade that improves every year it is left alone. Idea number 4, build raised beds from scaffold boards. Idea number 4. The raised bed build that costs a fraction of purpose-made garden bed kits and looks better than almost all of them. Scaffold boards, reclaimed from a hire company or purchased new from a timber yard, are thick, robust, and already treated to withstand outdoor conditions. A single board cut to length and joined at the corners with galvanized L brackets creates a raised bed of real substance and real character. The rough-sawn texture of the timber and the deep section of the board give the finished bed a solidity that thin-walled proprietary kits simply do not have. 2 boards stacked to a height of approximately 40 centimeters is the ideal depth for most vegetables and deep-rooted perennials. 1 board is sufficient for shallow-rooted crops, salad leaves, herbs, and annual flowers. Line the base with cardboard, a single layer placed directly on the grass or soil beneath. The cardboard suppresses weeds for the first season while decomposing harmlessly into the soil below over time. Fill with a quality raised bed growing mix. Plant immediately. The scaffold board aesthetic, raw, textured, deeply British in its origins, works in every garden style from contemporary minimalist to traditional cottage. Stain with a dark exterior oil if a finished look is preferred. Leave raw if the weathered silver grey of aged scaffold timber suits the palate. Budget, $20 to $50 per bed. A raised bed that looks like it has been there for years on the day it goes in. Idea number 5. Add solar stake lights through every planted bed. Idea number 5. The lighting idea that most people apply to pathways and should be applying everywhere else instead. Solar stake lights push through planted borders, angled upward at 45 degrees so the beam illuminates the plants from below rather than shining down onto the soil, create a dramatically different lighting effect from the standard stake-in-the-ground pointing straight up approach. Uplighting through foliage and flowers produces the same effect used in professional theatre and high-end garden lighting design. The light source is hidden, the subject is illuminated, and the result is a planted border that glows after dark with a depth and warmth that daylight never quite achieves. Use warm white bulbs at 2700 Kelvin, nothing cooler. Cool white light makes plants look grey and unwell after dark. Warm white makes every green appear richer and every flower colour more vivid. Push 3 to 5 stakes through each planted bed at irregular intervals, not evenly spaced like runway lights, but positioned intuitively where the most interesting foliage and flower forms are. Set to dusk on. The garden lights itself every evening from that point forward. Budget, $15 to $30 for a pack of 10 stakes. The nighttime upgrade that makes the planted beds the best part of the garden after dark. Idea number 6. Mulch every bed deeply and immediately. Idea number 6. The garden task that suppresses weeds, retains moisture, improves soil structure, and makes every planted bed look professionally maintained, in a single application that costs almost nothing and takes 1 afternoon. A 3 to 4 inch layer of bark chip mulch spread across the entire surface of every planted bed does more practical good than any other single garden task available. It blocks light to weed seeds in the soil below, preventing germination without chemicals. It insulates the soil surface against temperature extremes. It reduces moisture evaporation from the soil by up to 70% in dry weather. And it breaks down slowly over months, adding organic matter to the soil below as it does. The visual effect is immediate and significant. A freshly mulched bed reads as maintained and considered in a way that bare soil never does, regardless of what is planted in it. The dark, uniform tone of fresh bark chip makes every plant stem, every leaf, and every flower color stand out against it with maximum clarity. Buy in bulk bags for the best value. A large bulk bag covers a significant area of border and costs a fraction of individual smaller bags. Apply after weeding and watering. Keep mulch 2 inches clear of plant stems to prevent moisture sitting against the crown. Budget, $20 to $40 for enough mulch to cover an average backyard's borders. The maintenance upgrade that looks like a design upgrade. 6 ideas in and 8 more to go. Coming up, Idea number 9 is the boundary transformation that most people assume requires a contractor and a significant budget. It requires neither. And idea number 13, the one I mentioned at the start, uses a material that almost every household has in excess right now. Both are coming. Stay with me. Idea number 7, install a simple pergola from 4 posts and 4 beams. Idea number 7, the structure that changes the scale and character of an outdoor space more dramatically than any planting or surface treatment, because it adds something the garden previously had none of. An overhead plane. A simple flat-top pergola, 4 treated timber posts set in metal post spike anchors driven into the ground, connected at the top by 4 beams in a square or rectangular frame, creates a defined overhead canopy that gives the space beneath it a completely different quality. Sheltered. Framed. Proportioned. The outdoor space below a pergola reads as a room in a way that open sky above never allows. 4 posts. 4 beams. Construction adhesive and galvanized coach bolts at every joint. 1 weekend. No concrete mixing if post spike anchors are used. The spikes drive into firm ground with a rubber mallet and hold the posts rigidly vertical. Leave the frame bare for a clean, architectural look. Drape with a UV-rated shade sail for immediate overhead cover. Train a wisteria, a rose, or a grapevine through the frame for a living canopy that develops over 2 to 3 seasons into something extraordinary. Solar festoon lights loop through the beam framework turn the pergola into the center of the backyard social life every evening. The structure that costs under $100 in timber becomes the feature that defines the entire outdoor space. Budget: $60 to $100 in materials. The structural upgrade that changes the scale of everything around it. Idea number 8. Plant a cutting garden patch. Idea number 8. The garden idea that gives you fresh flowers for the house from spring to autumn, grown by you, for almost nothing, from seed. A cutting garden is a dedicated patch. It does not need to be large. A 1 meter by 2 meter bed is entirely sufficient, planted with annual and perennial flowers grown specifically for cutting rather than for display in the garden itself. Zinnias, cosmos, sweet peas, dahlias, rudbeckia, and amaranth are the backbone of any cutting garden, and all are easy to grow from seed, prolific in their flowering, and generous in their response to cutting. The more you cut, the more they produce. Sow direct into the prepared bed after your last frost date. Thin to the recommended spacing. Support tall varieties with a grid of jute twine stretched between short canes at knee height. The plants grow up through the grid and support themselves. The cutting garden pays for itself by the second week of flowering. A single bunch of dahlias or cosmos from your own garden, flowers you grew from a packet of seeds that cost $2, is identical to the bunch that costs $12 at a florist. Every week from July to October, you walk outside with scissors and come back with something worth putting on the table. Budget: $5 to $15 in seed. The garden idea that pays dividends in flowers every single week of the season. Idea number 9. Transform the fence with exterior paint and a stencil. Idea number 9. The boundary transformation I promised.
No contractor.
No new fence. Just paint, a stencil, and a Saturday morning. A fence panel painted in a bold, considered color, and then stenciled with a repeating geometric or botanical motif in a complementary tone, becomes a feature wall in the garden rather than simply a boundary. It becomes the backdrop that every plant, pot, and piece of furniture is arranged against. And it makes the entire outdoor space feel curated rather than default. Choose the base color first. Deep sage green. Warm terracotta. Inky navy. Charcoal. Something with depth and confidence. Apply 2 coats of exterior timber paint in the base color using a short pile roller for speed and a brush for the edges and gaps between boards. Allow to dry fully, 24 hours in good drying conditions. Cut a simple stencil from a sheet of acetate, a repeating leaf form, a geometric diamond, or an abstract botanical shape, or purchase a pre-cut stencil for a few dollars online. Apply the stencil pattern in a slightly lighter or contrasting tone using a stencil brush and a minimal amount of paint to prevent bleeding under the stencil edge. The finished panel reads as an intentional, designed surface rather than a painted fence. The garden in front of it immediately looks more considered by association. Budget: $20 to $40. The boundary upgrade that makes the whole garden look like it was art-directed. Idea number 10. Edge the lawn by hand with a half-moon edger. Idea number 10. The garden task that costs nothing if you already own a half-moon edger, and under $15 if you do not, and that makes the lawn look like it is maintained by a professional groundskeeper rather than a homeowner with an hour free on Sunday. A clean, sharp, Consistently vertical edge between the lawn and the surrounding border or pathway is the detail that makes a garden look genuinely cared for. Not mowing. Anyone with a mower can cut grass. Edging. The precise cut that separates the lawn plane from the planting plane in a line so clean it looks mechanical and is entirely made by hand. Push the half-moon edger vertically into the soil along the lawn edge at regular intervals, each push slightly overlapping the last, to cut a clean, vertical face. Remove the soil cuttings and add to the compost. Then run a long-handled lawn edging shear along the horizontal face to trim any grass overhanging the border. The result is a lawn edge with a clean vertical drop and a horizontal face of tidy grass, the combination that all professional lawn maintenance produces and that most domestic lawns never achieve. The lawn did not get larger. The borders did not change. The garden looks fundamentally different because the line between them is now precise. Budget, $0 to $15. The free upgrade that makes the whole garden look more maintained than it is. Idea number 11. Hang outdoor art on the fence. Idea number 11. The idea that almost no backyard implements and that every backyard benefits from, because it does for the garden wall what art does for an interior wall. It gives it a reason to look at it. Outdoor art is not a specialist category. It is any object with visual interest and weather resistance that can be mounted on a fence or exterior wall and experienced as a decorative element rather than a functional one. A large ceramic plate in a glaze that complements the garden palette. A woven willow or rattan panel in a geometric form. A collection of handmade clay tiles arranged in a grid on a painted fence section. A vintage enamel sign salvaged from a market stall. A hand-forged steel botanical silhouette. A leaf. A seed head. A branch. Mounted on wall fixings and left to develop a rust patina. Mount at eye height, the height at which art is hung in interiors. Not at the bottom of the fence where it reads as a ground level feature, and not at the top where it disappears against the sky. Eye height, framed by the space around it, with enough clear fence on all sides that the piece reads as a deliberate placement. One strong piece of outdoor art anchors the fence it is mounted on and gives the garden a focal point that is not a plant, not a structure, and not a surface. The unexpected element that makes the space feel fully considered. Budget, $10 to $50 depending on source. The detail that makes the fence worth looking at. Idea number 12. Create a wildlife corner with a log pile and wildflowers. Idea number 12. The garden idea that asks the least of you and gives the most back, because it is not a build. It is a deliberate act of leaving something alone. A wildlife corner is a section of the garden. It can be as small as 1 square meter, designated for managed neglect. Logs stacked loosely in a pile. A patch of native wildflower seed sown directly into undisturbed soil. A shallow dish of water set at ground level. And then, nothing.
No maintenance. No intervention. No tidying.
The log pile becomes a habitat within the first season. Beetles, woodlice, and ground beetles colonizing the spaces between the logs. Hedgehogs using it as shelter. Fungi appearing on the decaying bark face and contributing to the decomposition cycle that returns the wood's nutrients to the surrounding soil. The wildflower patch, native species only, from a regional seed mix, becomes a food source for pollinators within weeks of germination. Bees, butterflies, hoverflies, and moths all benefit from a patch of native flower that the managed garden cannot provide. The wildlife corner looks intentional when it is framed, a simple log edging around the perimeter, a small hand-lettered label that says what it is and why it is there. It looks abandoned when it is not. Frame it, label it, and let it do what unmanaged natural spaces do when they are left alone to become what they want to be. Budget, $0 to $10. The garden idea that does the most good by doing the least. Idea number 13. Make stepping stones from broken concrete. Idea number 13. The one I kept promising. The material most people dismiss. The result that looks like it cost 10 times what it did. Broken concrete. The pieces left over from a demolished path, a crack slab, a building project. The material that sits in skips, that contractors break up and dispose of, that homeowners pile in a corner and forget about. It is also one of the most characterful, most natural-looking, and most durable path materials available, when it is broken to the right size, laid correctly, and planted around well. Select pieces with at least one straight edge. These become the outer edges of the path, facing outward with their clean line giving the path its form. Lay pieces in a dry run first, fitting them together like a loose jigsaw with consistent joint gaps of approximately 2 centimeters between pieces. Then bed each piece onto a 1-inch layer of sharp sand, pressing and leveling until every piece sits stable and flat. Fill the joints between pieces with a mix of fine soil and creeping thyme, mind your own business, or moss. The plants establish in the joints within one growing season, and the path transitions from a broken concrete arrangement to an organic, textured, planted surface that looks genuinely beautiful and genuinely ancient. The material is free if you know where to look. Ask neighbors. Check local online community groups. Visit a skip. The labor is a single afternoon. Budget, $0 for the material. $10 to $20 for sand and joint plants. The most characterful path material available at any price. Idea number 14. Photograph your backyard and edit it on paper. Idea number 14. The final idea, and the one that makes every other idea on this list more effective, more deliberate, and more likely to actually happen. Photograph your backyard from every angle. The view from the back door. The view from the bottom of the garden looking back toward the house. The corners. The boundaries. The areas that bother you and the areas you never look at. Print the photographs or keep them on a phone. Then, with a pen and a piece of paper, mark on each photograph the one change that would make the most difference to that view. Not all the changes. 1. The most impactful single decision available for that specific angle. This exercise does two things that are both more valuable than they sound. It forces you to look at the garden the way a first-time visitor would, without the familiarity that makes every flaw invisible to the person who lives with it. And it converts an overwhelming list of things to do into a prioritized sequence of single decisions, each one achievable on its own terms, each one improving a specific view rather than attempting to improve everything at once. The backyard transforms when decisions are made in the right order. Photograph it. Edit it on paper first. Then go outside and make the first decision. Budget, $0. The planning upgrade that makes the 14 ideas on this list 20 times more likely to become the backyard you actually want. 3 quick bonus tips that make every idea on this list work harder. Bonus tip 1. Work from the back door forward. Always start the transformation with the view you see most, the one from the back door looking out. That is the view you experience every day. Improve it first, and every subsequent improvement builds on a foundation you already love rather than working toward it. Bonus tip 2. Repeat one plant 3 times. Pick one plant that you love, one that is right for your conditions and your aesthetic, and plant it in at least 3 separate locations across the garden. The repetition creates rhythm and coherence that makes the planting feel designed rather than assembled. One decision. Applied 3 times. A different garden. Bonus tip 3. Finish one area completely before moving to the next. The temptation is to spread effort across the whole garden simultaneously, a little here, a little there, and end up with a garden that is partially improved everywhere and finished nowhere. Finish one corner completely. Stand in it. Enjoy it. Then move to the next. Completion is motivating in a way that partial progress is not. 14 DIY garden ideas to transform your backyard easily. Clear the clutter before anything else so the canvas is visible. Define the seating zone with an outdoor rug that turns furniture into a room. Plant a climber on every fence and let the boundary work for the garden instead of just marking it. Build raised beds from scaffold boards that look better than anything sold in a kit. Push solar stake lights through every planted bed and let the garden light itself after dark. Mulch every border deeply and watch everything in it look more considered immediately. Build a simple pergola that changes the scale of the entire outdoor space. Plant a cutting garden that pays for itself in flowers every week of the season. Transform the fence with paint and a stencil that turns a boundary into a backdrop. Edge the lawn by hand and make the whole garden look maintained at a level it has never been before. Hang outdoor art on the fence and give the garden a focal point that nobody expected. Create a wildlife corner that does the most by doing the least. Make a stepping stone path from broken concrete that looks ancient and costs almost nothing. And photograph the backyard, edit it on paper, and make decisions in the right order. 14 ideas. 1 backyard. 1 decision at a time. Drop a comment and tell me which idea you are starting with, or tell me the one that surprised you most. I read every comment and I reply to every one. If you are new here, welcome to Daily Garden Fix. Subscribe and hit the bell because new ideas come out every week. And this channel exists for one reason, to make sure the backyard you want is never more than 1 Saturday away from the backyard you have. Share this with someone whose garden is waiting for a reason to start. It might be exactly the 14 reasons they needed. I will see you in the next one. Pick one idea. Go outside. Start there. Take care. Bye.